Hi everybody, welcome to Season 3, Episode 26 of The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh McAnthony, Chairman and Co-owner of Peterborough United. And you're going to get both of us sniffing our way through this. I think we've both caught colds here in Florida. And
the weather's been up and down, hasn't it?
I know, hasn't
like
it just? And
52, fucking 72, 82, it's weird. And I'm going to New York tomorrow and it's 29. It's like,
here we are complaining about, it's not quite as sunny as it usually is.
Yeah.
Problems.
Yeah, well, you've been camping, obviously. I know some fans are like, why didn't you do a podcast after you lost to Cheltenham? Well, Phil's got a personal life, obviously. Kids are on spring break. I'm going for my daughter's birthday tomorrow for a couple of days to New York, that I got her a long time ago. So that's 29 degrees. But it's one of them in Florida where you walk out in a T-shirt because you think, well, it's going to be hot all day. It's cold. Then you put heavy stuff on and it's too hot. So this is why people end up with like a little bit of the flu occasionally.
Yeah, we were there in New York a couple of weeks ago and our youngest son was walking around as if it was Florida, refusing to put any jackets on or anything because he thought it made him look stupid. So, that was the battle.
He's a brave man, I'll tell you. It's like New York is bloody cold, so yeah. But all good.
Well, it's been an interesting week of football. So we were just talking before we hit record about Cheltenham and that being a low point and how that was only, we're recording here on Sunday. That was only 8 days ago.
Yeah, this time last week I don't get low. I wasn't, I would call it more frustrated. I do my 5-mile walks at the moment every day. And it's usually after a posh game that's, hit the road and start walking. I was burning my way around here, last Saturday after that, it was, I don't know. It was like I used to, what did I say at the time? You get excited and then something like that happens and it's just like back down to earth. Look, I'm going to give a few things some credit. I'm going to give the manager massive credit. I don't think any other manager would have bounced back from Cheltenham to win away on Tuesday and win away yesterday. Because after that performance on Saturday, obviously everyone was writing the obituary, and rightly so because it was so bad. And if that had been any other manager, they probably would have made 7-8 changes. Panic stations would have set in. So I've got to give the manager massive kudos for that. He's that's experience. That's a good manager. That's somebody who's like seen it all, been there, done it. And he obviously just calmed things down. I spoke with him, whatever else. He's very calm after, very disappointed, but dealt with the players last Sunday, and him and his staff obviously then had a week ahead where you're playing a Burton team on Tuesday, and people go, yeah, but it's Burton, and I'll go, yeah, but they were unbeaten in 11 games at home. They've just beaten Wickham. Then you're going to Lincoln. They're unbeaten all season at home. So you're looking at the week going, this, you've just been absolutely thumped, and fair play to Cheltenham at our place in front of your fans, and it's a morgue. Everyone's losing their shit. It's DMAC out again. It's this, that, whatever. And, podcast fucking, doing whatever else on me. And, so from the manager and staff doing that, and then the players, and I've dug out the experienced players most of the season, but to be fair, they've got everything back on track this week. They've come to the party. They've obviously helped the younger players. They've steadied the ship and they've calmed everyone down, gone out and battered Burton. Should have been a lot more, and then rolled into Lincoln yesterday and battered them for back-to-back wins. Forget about tables, forget about permutations, forget about whatever else. But what they've done is they've shown when they want to be, they can be a really, really top football team. They've shown they can play some great football. And the football, by the way, is like, and if you're watching those games, it's everything you want as a fan. It's front foot football, it's possession football, it's attacking football, it's goals, it's chances.
Yeah,
it's a little bit. Probably Tuesday was a little bit Keystone Cops at times, defensively and everything else. But at the end of the day, my mentality is always we'll score more than you score. And I would always, if somebody allows our attack to have a chance, if they're going to attack us and we're going to attack them, they're going to open up. I would always fancy us, no matter what. And a lot of the experienced players have, come to the party. And, Alan Swan did a great article today about the run-in and the players and the appearances, the promotions mixed with the younger players. So credit to the players, credit to the manager, but a big credit to a lot of fans. I know sometimes we get caught up in the negativity maybe coming towards me. And I know it upsets a lot of posh fans who've been around a long time because Twitter's a vacuum. It's not always a representation of your fan base.
Yeah.
and sometimes it can bring out the worst. You'll get the people who will be just like vicious. You'll get people out there just moaning like whatever else. Everyone, look, freedom of speech. Everyone has a right to moan as long as they keep it civil and it doesn't get personal. And a lot of experienced fans, they went to Burton on a Tuesday night after getting beaten at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a few hundred of them there. Fair play to them. Nearly 2,000 went to Lincoln yesterday. You know, they put the hard yards in. You know, they probably feel at times with some of the fans that have got me, ownership, everything at the club, every mistake we make under a microscope. They probably think like, God, can our club just get a break? So sometimes those wins are for them and those fans who just, no matter what, sun, rain, storms, whatever, they show up, you know, they put up, they support the team. They realise that Peterborough United's not going to win every football game they play. And sometimes they're going to get beaten. Sometimes they're going to let us down. And they're League One players. They're going to have issues, runs, whatever.
Consistency.
But they show up. Yeah. And, you know, and I get a lot of messages. And it's usually, there's a lot of older fans, but there's still some, you know, sometimes I would go with the younger fans as well, because they can be they're different nowadays. You know, those fans 18 to 25, where it's just demanding immediate success, getting angry at me when I say I want us to be successful and we don't end up successful, because that's just who I am. I can't change. But the older fans, no matter what, they're just great. And, you know, I get emails from them, I get messages from them, and it's wonderful. I could name 25 right now of the same people who, no matter what, whatever's going on, will email, will message. Usually after a defeat, they'll do it, which is the best time you want to hear from them. It's not always after a win, and it's always top class, you know. And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me, like, you know, I love owning a football club. I love owning this football club. I love what I do. So fair play to those three lots. You know, the manager, the players, the fans. They deserve that, regardless whether we get battered in the next game, another Cheltenham, or we win the next game. You know, all I ever want from my team is to give us a chance, is to go into game. You know, a couple of months ago, I never thought we'd win an away game. I woke up every day thinking, you know, we're terrible. You know, I think we were fourth bottom in League One for away wins. We're now top four.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the current manager, I think he's got 2 points a game. You know, and again, after we lost to Cheltenham, I was seeing comments from fans, you know, some fans and some people saying, you know, this is the players, this isn't the managers, it's the players, it's the owners, it's whatever else. And I was like, well, no, I don't believe that necessarily. As much as I can get angry with my players, I've always believed we've got good players for this level. Mm-hmm. I've always believed that we were way underperforming previously, and you know, we should have been doing much better. And I guess when you look at whether it's Darren Ferguson, whether it's, you know, Jurgen Klopp managing Peterborough right now, you know, since the change in management, we're at 2 points a game. We've scored 5 goals a couple of times. We've created more chances. We've gone from fourth bottom to fourth top in away wins. You know, people go on about the home form. We've still battered some teams at home and some good teams like Plymouth. And you can also say previously we were the bottom team in League One for goals scored in the last 20 minutes of games. Mm-hmm. We're now top 10. You know, so all of those little differences, those little things in a short space of time, regardless who the manager is right now, you have to give credit to the management staff for that change in mentality and approach and everything. And yeah, and some of the players are playing their best football. I listened to Jack Taylor's interview yesterday, and he just said it. You know, he just said, look, this, you know, under the current manager, you know, he just gets me the way I want to play, and he's just dominating. You know what I mean? And although Clark Harris has always been prolific, again, he's looking like he's getting stronger as the season's coming to an end, and people give him a hard time and they slag him for what he looks like and this, that, and the type of player he is. But he's the GOAT of League One. He is. You know, at the end of the day, he should win the Golden Boot. Mm-hmm. He'll get near to 30 goals. You know, if he does that across 3 seasons, including the championship, he'll have nearly 70, 75 league goals. Yeah. There's nobody in football as good as him, regardless that he's 28. Target men like him are like fine wines. They get better with age. Just look at Ricky Lambert. So you look at all those things, you know, and whatever else, fair play. And most exciting for me, and don't mind my girls there in the background, they're off on a walk. Most exciting for me, put the first team to the side. Our under-18s have won 9 in a row. Yeah, they've won 9 in a row. They're now into the League Cup final. You know, in their academy category. You know, the 16s are in their own cup final. You know, and we're producing, like, we had technical meetings last week and whatever else, and Jason had a big one with Kieran and the academy with our colour gradings. Some of the players coming through, as much as people can get negative about the football club, there's actually some exciting stuff coming through, and the academy is just like it's like, like, and I almost get more excited when I see the 18s have won a game than the first team, particularly after the Cheltenham game last Saturday. Yeah, look, that's all I'll say about Peterborough. I'm not going to get overly excited. I'm not going to start going, we're going to win 9 in a row, because I know every time, we think like that, a Cheltenham is around the corner.
Yeah.
So can't think like that. It's like we've given ourselves a chance. Darragh and his staff have given us a chance that I didn't think we would have prior, the way we were playing, 1 win in 9. Whatever. We have a chance, and I'm enjoying most of the time what I watch.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been a Cheltenham in there. There was a Bolton, which was a freak result. Really, in the 13 games, I think the Cheltenham was the worst. The rest you could watch and go, well, actually, we should have won probably 11 out of the 13. But the Cheltenham one was a bad one. So it is what it is. Maybe it did us a favour. Maybe.
There's no lack of goals, even when as you allude to, when you lost, you lost 3-0 and you lost that Derby game, not Derby, the Bolton game, which was what, 5?
We had 18 chances, 5-0. 18 chances in the game. It was mad.
Now scoring 8 goals away from home in 5 days. And so it's Derby next, right? Is that next Saturday at home?
Derby at home next Saturday. Well, I mean, we play some good teams in the final 9 games. We play some teams obviously fighting for their lives. We play some teams at the top. At the end of the day, and people go, you need to win 8 out of 9, and There's a long way to go, I guess. I guess we can never get overly we were all like going, we're finished last Saturday against Cheltenham, but with the amount of games you've got, you're not always finished. It's not always what you think. Regardless, I just want to keep enjoying watching us play. I want to see us score goals. I want to see, hope. I want to see everyone contributing. I want the experienced players who, have hammered this season in particular go, well, actually, we still are pretty good. I want to see the younger players go, we're going to be the stars next year. I want to see all those things happen. So I'm going to enjoy the 9 games. Some would say 12, hopefully, but I'm going to enjoy the 9 games in League One, and go from there. But bar Cheltenham, I'm pretty much enjoying what I'm watching, and I think most fans would be deceitful if they said they weren't. It's like, yes, there was a good game. It was a good game. It was a good game against a tough side who don't lose at home, haven't lost at home for a long time, not all season. And whilst they stacked up defensively and want to, were pretty much, I wouldn't say they were negative. They were just worried about what we could do to them. It took us 28 minutes to get going. But in those 28 minutes, we had 80% of the possession. We were in the game. We were professional. That's what you want to see. Sometimes teams don't let you just roll over them. Sometimes good teams have to find a way, and it takes time, and you open a team up. And so it was professional. It was good. So that's posh. And great. Long may that continue. Let's talk about the mighty Bantams. Let's talk about your week. So give us the lowdown.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, really. Our last 3 games have all been draws. We drew 0-0 since we recorded last.
Yep.
0-0 away at Walsall, 1-1 against Newport, 2-2 yesterday against Hartlepool. And so it feels like in all of those, it's missed opportunities as opposed to, points gained. But, you look at the form table, we're still 4th or 5th in the form table. And that just shows that nobody's really, it's just, the league right now isn't much of a muchness.
You've got a good habit of not losing.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good habit to have. If you look at Peterborough, we've lost 15, 16, whatever games, and we've won nearly 20 games. Only 3-4 teams have done that in League One. So you've got a pretty good habit of not losing, which is not bad when you're watching as a fan. 90% of the time your team's not going to lose. So, but I looked at the table. I mean, you're 6 points out. You've got games against teams up there. It's perfect. You've set yourself up perfectly, regardless of, should you have won 2 of those 3 games?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, were there man of the match performances by opposition goalkeepers?
It was probably some missed chances, and what's the problem that we've had all season. It's funny that
the goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's just having the possession and not turning the possession into anything creative, and so the goals still usually come from moments of magic from Andy Cook. as opposed, I don't think we've had one goal from a defender all season, which is pretty it's crazy to be 5th place in the table and a defender's not scored all year.
We're not too dissimilar, by the way.
Yeah.
Nathan Thompson, has he scored? Maybe Frankie scored 1. Ronnie hasn't scored. Nathaniel Obeta, I don't think has scored. Butler hasn't scored. No, I agree, because a lot of teams you see a centre half like 4 or 5.
Right, because they're coming up the corners and set pieces at least.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah. Do you get goals from midfield? Do you have goals? Who's the next goal scorer in the squad?
So I haven't looked in a few weeks. The last time I looked, it was Tyreek Wright, who left us in January to go to Plymouth at 4. I think Jamie Walker may have 4 or 5 now.
Okay.
Who's plays as the number 10, but that's it. There's nothing really. And Andy Cook's on 22, 23 at the moment.
Phenomenal. He's having really the season.
It's exactly what it is. I mean, the confidence. One of the goals yesterday. So he scored 2 more yesterday.
Yeah. So
we came from behind for both of them, which was a positive.
Character.
Because oftentimes we wouldn't do that. But his second goal was kind of turn volley on the swivel, and you just think that's not a League Two. That's not a player in League Two who can score that kind of goal.
He's playing way above himself. He's playing way above himself. Is he out of contract at the end of the season?
He is. Yeah.
Geez, you should be getting that sorted out now, shouldn't you?
Yeah, it's interesting how we've talked about before. At the beginning of the season, he was on his way out, and now, and they haven't opened any talks yet with him. So maybe it's just waiting on division. But I think that he could do. If you're in League One, I think he's still somebody that you'd want to. He's not going to be a carrier, in League One.
He scored a League One hat-trick against us and beat us 3-0 when he played for Walsall.
Yeah, he scored 17-18 that year when Walsall got relegated.
Yeah, he battered us, absolutely, yeah. So can he score League One? Listen, get it signed now, because the problem you've got is other people can do a pre-contract with him.
Mm-hmm.
But fair play to him. He's obviously player of the season in League Two, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So
and he's top scorer by it's funny, we've both got the top scorers. For us, it's very unusual because we've never, players who have scored 20 goals a season for us have been, once in a blue moon. I think it's Naki Wells was probably the last one that got anywhere close to that. So it's unusual for us to get somebody who's so prolific.
Yeah. Well, you've got Carlisle next, is that correct?
Yeah, it is. So that's going to be, I feel a little bit make or break on automatic promotion.
Where is that?
That's at home.
Ooh, juicy.
So that's on Tuesday. So that'll be a big one. Ooh. And then Carlisle have half of our team playing for them. It feels like, over the last few years, anyone that we've let go on a free transfer seems to have ended up at Carlisle.
Okay.
So Paul Simpson's, but Paul Simpson, what a great job he's done there.
Yeah, we spoke about that recently, and wow, okay, that's a juicy game. I mean, that's you wish that was a Saturday game. That's
I mean, you would get 20,000 plus on a Saturday
easily. So that's pretty juicy. What is your running like? Is it mixed with the top and mixed with the bottom?
So it's on paper, it's a relatively easy run-in.
Don't say that word.
Which is exactly why I hesitate, because on paper, Hartlepool, we're third bottom. We have Rochdale coming up who are bottom. So we've got teams that are fighting.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have Crew next Saturday, and that got postponed for international call-ups.
Right.
Which is frustrating. But then the last couple of games of the season is Northampton and Leyton Orient. So Leyton Orient probably champions by then.
They'll be on the beach. If Northampton are up already, the only positive thing there is you want both of them to be up already, kind of thing.
Right.
And then line on the beach, so that you've got 6 points in the bag.
Or Northampton could be, whoever wins gets automatic.
And after what happened to them last year, they'll be really at it. Mm-hmm. With the whole Bristol Rovers 7-0.
Yeah, losing 7-1, wasn't it, or 7-0?
Yeah, Jesus. So, that's going to be really interesting. So, League Two's fascinating when you look. I mean, League One's fascinating with so many big teams in there, and the fight between Ipswich, Plymouth, and Sheffield Wednesday. But League Two's pretty fascinating as well.
Yeah, and I think that from a playoff perspective, we're 4 points in the playoffs, but still, 10 games plus to play. So, I was just reading 10 years ago, was it? 10 years ago when we got promoted from this league last time to the playoffs, we were something like 9 points behind at this point in the season out of the playoffs.
Wow.
And I just lost something like 4-0 away at Exeter.
Jeez.
And thought that's the season done. And Exeter were in the playoffs, and that turned out to be their last win of the season. We went on a run, and we got in last day of the season. Oh, no. Actually, we got in with a game to spare.
Wow.
So all it takes is, the same situation when I think about your situation, all it takes is you just keep keeping on with your 2 points a game average through the rest of the season. And there's going to be somebody who has a bit of a,
I mean, if we keep going at 2 points a game a night, we're going to end up at 80 points. If you don't get in at 80 like last year, that's 2 years in a row, which is a statistical anomaly. It would just be, again, gutting, but you get what you deserve, I guess. That's look, football's fascinating. It's going to be an interesting final 10 games in the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two. You look at the relegation race in the Premier League. There's like 10 teams in it. You look at the Championship, the mix. This is the beauty of our pyramid. It's the excitement. I mean, Notts County shit the bed yesterday, drawing with Barnet, because otherwise that would have been fascinating with the Wrexham battle, going all the way. It's all. You could almost go all 5 leagues if you go down to the conference. Are like, blockbuster entertainment. It's a great advertisement for when you're trying to sell the rights to your league.
And the Premier League, the relegation battle in the Premier League is
mad.
Going to be the most fascinating I think we ever had, isn't it?
It's mental. I think everyone below Aston Villa, to take Aston Villa top 10 or 11 out, they're like 11, 12 points away from 12th place, something like that. So every team below that is basically in a relegation battle.
Yeah, 12th, there's 4 points from 12th on down.
Oh my God.
And yet, so Palace in 12th are on 27.
Yeah.
Villa in 11th are on 38.
Yeah, they're done. To take the 11 away and break it into your 2 leagues now, because that's going to be blockbuster. And you cannot pick,
No.
could you pick 3 from that? Because no. I saw Everton fight back against Chelsea. I watched Southampton fight back from the dead yesterday. Leeds had a big win. It's...
You think, we talked about Palace maybe being out of it, and now they've been dragged into it and sacked Vieira as well, haven't they? Or they did sack him, or was he about to be sacked?
No, they sacked him. They sacked him a couple of days ago, yeah. So Vincent Kompany did a great interview with a great defensive era, to be fair. But, I guess, look, if you're in Palace's position, you're nervous, the owners, because you haven't won since the old king died, kind of thing, since pre-Christmas. Even though the run of fixtures you had were against some top teams, again, you're looking at the fixtures coming up and going, well, if he hasn't won for 10 weeks and he's maybe lost the dressing room, is now the time to make a change? And to be fair, the Parish and Cowell Palace, over the years, they've sat managers in certain situations that people have looked from the outside and gone, what are they doing? But it's always worked for them. So the fact they're 10 years in the Premier League, you got to trust the ownership.
Yeah, it's and like you say, you can't pick. It's a crapshoot to pick anyone, isn't it?
It's mad. Yeah,
which is great for football.
Entertaining.
And I see that Ivan Toney keeps knocking him in as well.
Listen, I want him to get his cap for England. We don't get any money, by the way, but I want him to get cap for England because the meteoric rise from where he was 4 years ago. I hope this ban isn't long when it happens. He's destined to play for a top team, and not because we need to sell on. I'm just enjoying watching his career develop. He's one of the best players in the Premier League.
Yeah, how he had that potential and he's
fulfilled.
You have. Yeah, it's not a given when you have the talent.
No.
Talent enough, as we talk about, is not enough, and he's really taken that step up and
massively. England. I said it at the time. They should never have picked Callum Wilson over him going to the World Cup. I said it at the time. Absolute, jobs for the boys. You know what I mean? The fact that he was picked over Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney's miles better than Callum Wilson. If Callum Wilson was fully fit in the condition Toney was in, maybe that's a different argument. But Ivan Toney is, for me, streets ahead of him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he gets to play for England, if he scores for England. You'd be very excited for him. So good luck to him.
And then we had Antonio Conte yesterday trying to get himself sacked, I think.
Obviously, the break's coming up. He fancies heading home to Italy. He obviously wants to go home with a check in his pocket. A lot of the stuff he said you couldn't disagree with, regards to the players, the attitude, and whatever else. It's dangerous when you do that as a manager because you can lose a dressing room very quickly. But then again, he might go, "What have I got to lose?" Then you would go, you get paid 15 million quid a year. I see the way your team plays. You know, you have a certain style. And sometimes it takes them an hour to get going, whatever else. I've seen Liverpool attack against them and then suddenly they spring into life. But then I've seen what he did at Chelsea. I've seen what he did at Juventus and Inter Milan and whatever else. So there's no doubt he's a top manager. But when you start going down that road and then you're talking about ownership hasn't won for 20 years, you are kind of saying, send me a check, let me stay over there and I don't need to come back. Again, it's always easy to blame ownership. The one thing Conte said yesterday I agree with was, what about the wages the players get paid? He said, I get paid a lot of money. The players get paid a lot of money. They're not wrong. At the end of the day, like some of those players are on 300 grand a week. Yeah. So you can keep going on about, well, the ownership at Tottenham hasn't won anything for 20 years and they haven't done this, they haven't done that. But I do seem to remember that they spent a lot of money the last couple of windows. It's not like they haven't backed them and brought players in. Right. Were they signing players on 500 grand a week? Were they, come on. At the end of the day, they run a good ship. They've got the best stadium outside of, in England, in Europe, probably undoubtedly. I don't know. They're fourth at the moment. As a Liverpool fan, I'd like to swap with them. So it's not all bad, but they definitely need to do something in the management position there. So, watch this space. That'll be interesting.
And then if we go into the Championship, we'd kind of talked a few weeks ago about it being a done deal, Burnley and Sheffield United. A lot going on at Sheffield United right now, both on the field and we just, as we're recording, they just got through to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, but they're only 3 points adrift from, Middlesbrough are only 3 points adrift from them now. And then all this talk about paying their bills and administration, and it's just, it's very, very strange.
Middlesbrough are flying. Fair play to their new manager. Sheffield United have been there all season. When I read stuff like that and whatever else, I kind of want to root for them because I don't want to see any club get in trouble. So financially, so I'm glad they did well in the cup. I'm glad that's, you believe the stuff you read about them keeping the lights on and the on the floor heating on. They need to win in the cup. I don't know how much all of that is correct. A club that's got players with the valuations, a club that's on the brink of getting back to the Premier League, parachute money. I'm sure it would be very easy for them to secure 5-10 million quid in funding. To get them through the next few months. There's accessible money out there with expensive interest rates you have to pay, but you can get it. I think West Brom did a loan this season. Other clubs have done it.
Probably only be a short-term bridge if
100%. They've got 2-3 players worth 25 million each. Yeah. They would have no problem paying a loan back. So again, believing they're close to administration. Sometimes the drama, the headlines, the this, the that. It's not always the way. It's a bit like our club this season, the stuff that's written, the stuff that's said. And you just like, give us a fucking break. You know what I mean? So, and then you read about Wigan have obviously missed a few paydays and they're obviously having problems. Birmingham have got issues. So many clubs. We talked about Reading before. It shows you how tough COVID was on football clubs. It shows you how tough the financial world is tough on everybody, and that's kind of what happens when you lock everyone up for like 2 years. As I always said, what would happen financially afterwards. It's a tough place, and but sometimes it's not always as bad as you think it is. That's what I'd say about that.
Yeah, you do wonder, and this is just pure speculation, whether there's some games of chicken going on regarding the takeover.
Yeah, I've read the Athletics thing and the takeover and some of the people involved. I'm not sure I believe that. Mm-hmm. If I was the Sheffield United owner, when's the best time to do a takeover and sell the club? As a Premier League club or as a Championship club?
Right.
So if I were him, and I don't know his personal circumstances, I would pause all takeover and sales deals until I know what league we're in next year. Because Sheffield United in the league above is worth millions of pounds more. So
couple more wins, and that's all it might take.
And they got a good manager. They got a great squad. I said this all along. Middlesbrough are overachieving. They're doing phenomenal, as are Luton, by the way. So who knows? And my tip, Coventry, from rising from the bottom all the way up there towards the top 6. Looks like I was right again, right, Philip?
Well, and we keep on running out of words about Luton because
phenomenal.
The table, 4th on the table now, and only 6
every time I go to the results in the Championship, it's Luton 1-0. Luton will. It's just like wow. So no, listen, fair play to them. We've spoken. We've said how good they are as a club. Coventry now doing the same. and then you got the clubs at the bottom. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if you saw the Rotherham and Cardiff thing yesterday with the rain and the water and stuff. That was interesting.
Yeah, ironically, we were at the Orlando game last night again and met some Rotherham fans.
Right.
And my oldest had his Bradford shirt on, which attracted them to him.
You're right. Gotcha.
You know, they were very happy with the fact that they were, you know, squeegeeing water back onto the pitch to get it cold off.
No, yeah, and I don't know about, you know, sometimes you look at videos and footage just put.
Oh, I know.
You know, is that what it is? I'm not sure. You know, whatever. Look, I want Rotherham. I like Tony Stewart, so I kind of want Rotherham to stay up. You know, they've had a rough ride. They've lost a really good manager. They had a good start to the season, so I kind of want them to stay up out of all those clubs. Yeah. So, but I don't know how the EFL now handle that. I don't know what the rule is for. I'd be gutted if I was winning 1-0 in a game as well. For, you know, say you were 3-0 up.
It just, I mean, it's just game gets abandoned and you have to replay it.
Not sure. I always believe that. I think, you know, if you're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go in a game, you know, I'm kind of the mind like that's horribly unfair. If you're 1-0 up and there's an hour left, yeah, sure, replay it, but maybe replay the hour. So who knows? So I guess we'll find out in time. So yeah. Any other interesting tidbits before we go on and talk about the Yellow Block podcast attack?
Let's you know, just going into League One a little bit, I just want to call out Ipswich. I mean, they just keep on winning right now, and only a couple of points off Plymouth, going for that automatic. So
three things that are interesting. Sheffield Wednesday, phenomenal. You know, unbeaten for how many games? Credit to them. Credit to Plymouth because the pressure they're under from those big clubs and to keep winning after what happened to them last year. And then a massive credit to Ipswich, basically, their young manager. They are the team in form. They're like a steam train, aren't they? So, yeah, and I still think we have to play them as well. So, you know, they've got their head on that they just want to get back in the championship. So, yeah, it's going to be a fascinating run-in. And then a massive credit to Barnsley, who are probably even a bigger form team in the league, who won so many games, and they had another great win yesterday away. Where did they win away at? I can't remember.
Let's have a look. Away at Wickham.
Away at Wickham, not an easy place to win at. And Barnsley just keep grinding out wins. They've caught fire as well. So, you know, I don't know how far they are out of it. I think maybe they're 9 points out of it, whatever else. But the way they're playing, they have a chance.
And they got a couple of games in hand as well.
They've got a chance. So it could end up being a 4-horse race for 2 spots there. So that will be really interesting.
And I guess shout out to Fleetwood, a 2-0 win at Derby. So always a difficult place to go.
I'd like to write a check for that result right now. You know, it's a massive credit to Fleetwood, yeah, absolutely. And to MK Dons for shifting out of the bottom 4. They had an important win yesterday.
So yeah, let's just talk about the other topic of the week before we go to all things kind of podcasts. And Gary Lineker, the news that was seemingly the most important global news there for 3 or 4 days. And I have a feeling that you have an opinion.
Yeah, but I don't, you know, it's a case of, you know, we all have an opinion. Gary's got an opinion. I don't know his contract. He's freedom of speech. You're entitled to say what you want. I muted him years ago on Twitter, you know. So at the end of the day, not everyone's going to agree with him. I didn't like to see a day without anyone working on football. You think of all the camera people, the technical crew that maybe didn't get paid that day. You know, all the solidarity stuff's great. I get everyone's arguments about why didn't they do it for Qatar. You know, I get everyone's arguments. You know, I don't want to get into the migration argument because I'm not British. I don't live there. You know, here living in America, I'm an immigrant, but I did it legally. But then again, I've never been in a circumstance where I needed to take my family somewhere and whatever else. So there's an argument on both sides, and this is where you can get apolitical and too political. You know, you yourself didn't know we had a border crisis here 2 months ago because you watched CNN and MSNBC. So it was only when I told you there were actually 15 million people illegally have come over the border since your president's been voted in, and you were kind of like, is that true? So you know, I did legal migration, spent a lot of money doing it, and went through the process with my family, like you probably did. So, but again, put myself in someone else's shoes and walk a day in my shoes. It's all those arguments, and then I get the arguments from people in Britain who are struggling, who live in towns and cities, you know, where they're bursting at the seams. They're struggling to put food on the table, and they're seeing obviously $6 billion being spent on hotels and this, that, whatever. I get all the arguments from both sides. I don't want to really if I worked in sports or whatever, and it was my job, I'd probably be, I'd stick to sports. It's easy as an owner, I can have an opinion.
Yeah.
If I was in sports, I would just stick to probably my subject, because I want to do my job really well. And I got back to the Matt Letizia thing when Comcast obviously, bought Sky, and Sky went down the whole kind of woke route and got rid of a lot of the old, they call them dinosaurs. Letizia was a victim of that. He was obviously, people call him an anti-vaxxer and have a go and da. There weren't a lot of people coming out and defending him. But there were a lot of people coming out and defending Gary Lineker, and it was almost like a popular thing. I was seeing people's names, women and males, saying, I won't be working at the BBC. I've never heard of some of them, giving it the big one on social media. And again, people's frustration would be, well, didn't hear any of that during Qatar. Some of the journalists are all excited about it. Didn't hear anything about that in Qatar. The reality is he won that battle. Him and his agent must be salivating, because I'm sure he can renegotiate a new contract now. The BBC want to keep him, and they want to make sure Match of the Day goes ahead. I did laugh when I saw obviously how many people watched it when no commentators, but
people watched it.
But that was just to tune in. I'm not going to criticize him one way or another. He's entitled to his opinion. The virtue signaling and people who didn't want to go on because he wasn't on and all of that, that's down to them or whatever else. If I'm contracted and paid to do a job, I'll do a job. God help anyone if they had put their hand up to go on that night and take the show. I just think sports, there's too much politics in it nowadays. I think, what's that word, stay in your lane sometimes. And people would say that about maybe you should stay. No, I'm an owner. I don't work for anyone. I'm not contracted to anyone. There's nothing in a contract I have in front of me that says I can't give an opinion on, men and women's sports or, whatever else. I'm brave enough, unlike lots of other people, to say, no, men don't belong in women's sports. Lots of people won't say that, including loads of women in sports. So because I come from a place of, I have daughters, I have a wife, all those things. And I believe, even though you might want to say you agree with me. So, but lots of people aren't brave enough to say it. So again, I can have my opinions about lots of things in life. And as people have seen, I do have an opinion. But again, I'm not paid by Sky or BBC or whatever else, to say one thing or another. And if I was, I'd probably just stick to sports. So Gary Lineker can say what he wants. It doesn't bother me. Like I say, I mute him. There are certain people I don't follow on Twitter, like people probably mute me. So I don't want to get embroiled in anything like that. It's not that I'm swerving it. I just, I think my partner Jason had said a few things, and he got hammered on Twitter for his opinion, and I think he's come off social media, whatever else, and again, he's just expressing his opinion. Do I agree with his opinion? Not necessarily, but that's his right to have his opinion. I don't need to call him a fucking asshole, just like I don't need to call Gary Lineker a fucking asshole or whatever else. I just choose not to listen to him. So, and I like Match of the Day like everyone else. I like the football highlight show. I don't love watching the stuff out in America. Sometimes I wish I had Match of the Day out here. I quite like Alan Shearer. Yeah. We watch the NBC stuff and whatever else. So I'm an Alan. I think Alan Shearer is great. Ian Wright, he's okay. Alan Shearer is very good. I like it. So let's move on. At the end of the day, none of the things any of them say, none of the things Gary says, whatever, they're not going to make any difference anyway. They're not going to make any difference. So, as we've seen over the last few years, whatever else, it's the gobshites in power in whatever country are the ones that make the difference and make those calls, right?
Yeah, I think it's as much a proxy for everyone just being pissed off at the government, and it was just a vehicle for them to demonstrate that as much as anything.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Whether you're left, whether you're right, whatever else, everyone has a strong opinion. They're getting pissed off both sides and whatever else. Just since COVID, the world's, it's just such a toxic place. Particularly when you talk about your own beliefs, it just becomes toxic. You could be on the left and have your beliefs, you're going to get attacked. You could be on the right, have your beliefs, you're going to get attacked. It's just there's no more grey area anymore. It's all black and white.
Unfortunately, where life is basically in the grey areas.
Yes, correct. Like me and you, we're both very different politically minded, but we've loads of things we meet in the middle and agree on.
Right.
And that's just been lost in translation with everything that's gone on. So it is what it is, I guess.
All right, so let's we've teased that we want to talk about this, so let's have a chat about a podcast. It's called the Yellow Block Podcast, which is a Peterborough United podcast.
My right of reply. My right on the fly.
It came across, I think, your desks or your social media. I think that
on Instagram.
Wasn't
the
necessarily friendly towards you.
Yeah, there was actually 4 different posh fans were like, "Have you or your lawyers listened to the recent?" And I'm like, "Lawyers? What do we do? I've had enough of lawyers, lawyers fees and legal fees." I'm like, "What?" I know the yellow block because Jason's obviously been on it. He's a fan. He's got the T-shirt and everything else. I think it's Darragh who runs it. Really nice young guy with family, and messaged me a lot over the years. And I know they have people on there that a different variety of guests aren't always my fans. But they're fans of the football club.
Yeah.
But obviously, people said no, they were savage. Now, I don't want to listen. The one thing I've agreed over the last kind of 2 weeks is I've got to get on with what I've got to get on with, and I can't listen to just negative crap about me, because really people need me at my strongest mentally to do the job that needs to be done, and I can't listen to the crap that's just slung at me all the time. So I didn't listen to it, but you listened to it. You made a load of notes.
Yeah, after you mentioned it, I went and listened to it, and ironically, it seems like it's been taken down.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
maybe maybe some word has got to them that maybe they crossed a line or two. But
well, let's stop there for a second, and let me just say this: I don't want to shut any podcast down. I'm not threatening any kind of action. Everyone has, I've said it before, the right and the freedom of speech to have an opinion. They don't have a right to distort facts. They don't have a right for misinformation. But they have a right to say how they feel. They have a right to not like me. They have a right to be DMAC out. They have a right to go on and have a rant. And that's the beauty about, freedom of speech, the world we live in and everything else, is that we all have a right to have our opinions, good or bad. Apologies for my dog in the background about the delivery person. Let me bring him over here. Come here. So I fair play to the guys. They enjoy their podcast. And I wouldn't want them to take any episodes down.
Yeah.
So let's get that straight. And I thought about this. This isn't an attack, the Yellow Block podcast. I'm not attacking them. I'm disappointed, obviously, when you go through some of the stuff that was said, because a lot of it's incorrect. And I'll address that. So instead of me attacking them, I'll just go through some of it point by point as quick as I can and say to them, they never gave me a writing reply. They obviously they've gone on there and done what they've done, probably after the Cheltenham game. Which is probably the worst time.
It does sound that to give them some credit, I think that they were pretty down from recent footballing results, and that's when you start to look for reasons why things like that happen.
Of course.
It's easy then to point fingers.
So, look, I wish nothing but love and peace to all those people, even the ones who don't like me. There's nothing I can do to change their opinion. It can't stop me from doing the job I've got to do. And get on with running the football club to the best of my ability and putting lots of my money into the football club, because that's all I do. And all I'll say is, before we go into, we'll go into the points, and then I'll tell everyone at the end what is my agenda for Peterborough, because everyone talks about agendas. So I'm just going to give everyone my agendas, and they can take my points from my agenda, and they can agree or disagree. But I'm not going anywhere. So it's not that you're stuck with me. I'm here. It's my football club. It has been for 17 years. It's not going to change, regardless of vile hate that comes my way on social media or whatever else by a small minority. I'm an adult. That's just the world I live in.
So let's go through. I made note of probably 5 or 6 different areas to touch on. The first one is, something that just doesn't seem to go away, and that's the donation to the Tories.
Okay.
There were comments in the pod around, it suggests that there's no spending controls at the club. It looks dodgy and underhand because we're trying to get planning approval, all the way down to smacks of corruption.
Okay, so
we're back.
I've seen your point here, Tin Pot Club. So. I'm sick of hearing that from opposition fans. Very surprised our own fans have said we're a tin pot club. Hate hearing that. I agree to disagree. Or let's agree to disagree. We're not a tin pot club. We're actually a brilliant football club. We have been for a long time, and there's so many good things that happen. And that's unfair to our employees, because I've got brilliant employees at our football club. No spending controls at the club. $5,000. Well, I'm meant to, with our CFO and our finance department and whatever else, question $5,000 being spent by an owner or somebody. Come on, behave. There's nothing dodgy and underhand. There's nothing to do with planning approval. A load of nonsense. So, absolute. If you were trying to be corrupt and do something like that with regards to planning, what you'd do it through the football, even personally. That's not how corruption works, people. So, not that I know how corruption works, but I'd imagine That's
you
not how
don't
you
you don't
do
want
it.
to try and leave any breadcrumbs.
Thank you.
The people who do that, don't they?
You've said it out loud. Unprofessional, underhand. Yeah, okay, call it unprofessional if you want, but not if you look at DMAC's political leaning, it should be no surprise. Again, that's what because the last and that's really funny because if you listen to the podcast through COVID, you'd realise I'm not a supporter of Tories or Labour. I'm not, all those political parties and what they did to us during COVID. I have no affinity and no love for either. They shut us down. They took our income away. They kept our kids home from school. Can't stand both for what they did during COVID. And my political leaning, people will say, because my opinion is DeSantis, Donald Trump, and whatever else. I'll just say this: everyone's life was much better pre the last election in America. So you may disagree, but I just know from people I know, economically, financially, bailing out banks, inflation, all the things that have gone on the last 2 years. America economically is in a very bad place. Whether you want to blame the current administration, the previous one, doesn't matter. Whatever my political leanings are, I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in God. I believe in legal migration. I believe our kids should, have the freedom to choose what schools they go to. I believe in lots of things that you might not believe in, but they're my beliefs. It doesn't make me a far right lunatic, and it doesn't make you a far left lunatic either. So having a go at my political leanings is just a cheap shot. Smacks of corruption, absolute nonsense. Backhander, again, crap. No backhander. If it was a backhander, and that was what the whole reason was for, you'd already have bricks and mortar on or whatever else. It doesn't work like that. And backhanding any political party is not going to guarantee you planning permission. It's not going to guarantee you a stadium. You're so far off, it's not even funny. It's because we're such an incompetent business with incompetent people. Again, it's a dig at people at the football club and a dig at the owners. You're not incompetent if you own a football club in your 20s.
Right.
You're not incompetent if you've been in football nearly 20 years. You're definitely not incompetent if you've never missed a payday in 17 years, something I've always been proud of. Have a look this week at how many football clubs have missed payroll. Have a look at how many football clubs are in trouble. To accuse my club, my employees of being incompetent is unfair. I have some of the best employees in the football pyramid.
Yeah, and seeing what your employees do as well, I would challenge anybody to spend a day in their shoes.
Correct.
Because nobody sees everything that goes on into their day-to-day jobs.
And I'll go into my agenda where I want to take care of my employees better. My employees are underpaid, underappreciated, by me included sometimes. So I'm not having that there's any incompetence. Have we made mistakes in the last 12 months? Have things been, over magnified? Yeah, over magnified. Things that aren't life support mistakes. They're just basic mistakes. And in any other given season, those mistakes wouldn't have been magnified to the level they have been this year. So let's calm down. Fans should continue to demand for answers. Why? We don't miss paydays. We don't not pay our bills. We every year try and put a product out that's either in a promotion race or a relegation fight in the championship. We froze our ticket prices this year to help the fans of the cost of living crisis. We're the most transparent club. I do forums. I answer questions on Twitter. I invite fans on here. Maybe I'm too transparent. We're more transparent than any other club. So all this constant demand for more answers, again, it's an overreaction.
I don't think that posh fans realize the transparency that they have with the club, but I do think that then that perhaps drives this belief that they should know everything. And so,
correct,
because posh fans know 95% more than any other fan of any other club of what's going on behind the scenes. It's like, well, if they're not telling us this 5%, then it means there must be something really underhand happening there.
Stop believing conspiracy theories.
Yeah, sometimes you just, the nature of business is confidentiality, and just sometimes you can't share everything.
Yes, we're a privately owned business. Yeah, we're like a 0.01% of shareholders that are fans. Our supporter base is our client base, as you would say. Our job and our obligation is to make sure the product is affordable. I wish we could do better on that front. Make sure it's a good product. Make sure that their food is good. I wish we could do better on that front. There's so many things I wish we could do better on that front, but there's no gremlins here. There's some things I can't be transparent and completely honest about because it's privy, it's private information. A transfer fee I'm not allowed to talk about. Loans I might not be allowed to talk about at times, but it doesn't mean I'm doing something that's nefarious. I always work in the best interest of the club, right back to when the stadium was bought and we didn't have it in club ownership. which at the end of the day, when you take a loan out, it's not against the club, it's on the actual stadium, which is a good thing, by the way, when you look at the financial climate. So fans have to understand after 17 years, I don't have an agenda that's against the club or them. Okay. And I'll go through what my agenda is in a minute. So everyone calm down.
So let's talk about the bond money.
Yes.
Concerns that the money was raised for planning application for the stadium, for the bar, and then for the safe standing.
So I've addressed this already with supporters groups. Sat there, gone through meetings. I've addressed it in forums. We pay our interest on the bond every year, like we do. We haven't missed a payment. We won't miss a payment. It'll get paid back. We are designing the sports bar. I actually had a really good conversation 3 days ago on a great Zoom call with our current CEO, with our CFO, with Jason. The planning will be paid for the new stadium when we get to that process. The bond money was spent also on the safe standing. Again, nothing nefarious. Again, I think people are just trying to come up with something there and go, oh, we need something to throw at the club, so I'm going to mention that. So again, absolute nonsense. Move on.
So it's related, and it's about the stadium. So there were comments around, we haven't heard anything about this in a long time. It's got to be dead in the water. Is the stadium going ahead? Just say yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, again, and Jason and Randy, and this has always been something that they obviously have dealt with. I've got a lot on my plate. I'll say this. We want a new stadium. It's not going to happen overnight. You look at the cost of borrowing, you look at interest rate. We have already had finance offered to us from overseas to build a new stadium. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not going to be an issue. Do I want to accept finance at the moment in its current interest rate metrics? Not necessarily, but things are going to improve financially, but it's going to take a bit of time. But for us to go out and build a 50, 60, 70 million pound stadium, would you rather do it at 9% borrowing or 16 or 18% borrowing? Have a think about that. Sometimes we have to make decisions what's best for the club, what's best for the fans, and I don't want to hang a noose around us, the fans, the club. We want to do the stadium. There is nothing there that's more important to me than our academy, the facilities, the stadium. That is the future for us. It'll be the greatest part of my legacy when I leave Peterborough. Them having, and I'm not leaving Peterborough tomorrow, I'm talking about years and years to come, them having a brand new stadium, not to mention the promotions and whatever. It'll be the stadium, but probably the most thing you'd be remembered
by. Infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure. And, again, I'm reading here, the owner's rift, Jason versus DMAC, Jason versus, me and Jason speak 3 times a day. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I speak to him more than my wife. There's no issues there. I've not fallen out with Randy. Do we speak all the time? No. Randy, said a few months ago, his main focus is his fund. And I understood that, and I understand that and everything else, You don't always have to be best friends at ownership level. There's lots of ownership structures up and down the country in football where people aren't speaking to each other. People are at each other's throat, and those football clubs still operate fine. This is overthinking from fans. So some of the stuff in there needs a fans forum, clearing the air, reset needed. All I'll say is our bills are being paid. That is the most important focus. The football you're watching is pretty decent. We're in an okay place as regards that. We'd like to be higher. And the ownership thing will be in time. We will have a conversation about it. Now's not the time. Mm-hmm. Let's get the season over with, and then we can go into detail. But I'm not working against Randy. I'm not working against Jason. Okay. And again, I'll go into at the end of this my agenda for the football club. So again, there's a lot of overthinking here.
I think it's important to note as well that for most football club owners, in fact, there are very few, if any, that I can think of. This isn't your number one sole only job. And so, correct, as you say, Randy and Jason both have other things that they're working on that's taking time. You have other things that you're working on, but you're putting so much time into the club. But it's not the only thing that all the owners have to work on at any given time.
No, we all have our own stuff going on. We all have our own families. We all have businesses. We all have different. Yes, I own half of the football club, by the way.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows that there is no third, and a third here. I own half of the club. And everyone's kind of like, putting 2 and 2 together and getting 8. It's wrong. At the end of the day, I have things at the club I do that I have carte blanche that I can do. Has always been the agreement between ownership since day one. And most of that is football related. Mm-hmm. So again, there's nothing nefarious in, some of the things they're mentioning here. Again, it's just an overreaction.
Now, the next area, and you've touched on it a little bit, was financial instability. So, what we talk about, debts, company accounts
Yeah.
being late for a lot of the companies associated with the club.
Yeah, but they're not like I'm seeing here Fluffy Sam,
Yeah.
OKR, London Rock. They're nothing to do with PFC. PFC doesn't own those companies. I don't know about you, Phil. I probably own 20 companies around the world. And sometimes at times I'll have forgotten about two of the companies and accounts wouldn't have been filed. And suddenly I have to pay someone $2,000 to get it done and reinstalled or refiled or
Get
whatever else.
fined for not doing it.
Yeah, that's not nefarious. That's not, I'm using that word a lot. That's not, oh my God, we're in trouble. That, lots of red flags. A load of bullshit. At the end of the day, London Road Properties, I think that's the company that owns the stadium. Again, like, there's no issue with that. We just file the accounts. And we signed off in a board meeting last week for that. Fluffy and Sam, I think that's Jason. OKR UK, I think that's Jason and Randy. Nothing to do with me. My company's in Luxembourg. As far as I believe those accounts have been filed. It costs me enough money every year to file them. And I have somebody, Sarah, who works for me. Yeah, I have somebody who works for me who does that. So again, if someone's used the word could be nefarious or could be genuine, it's genuine. It loses stability behind the scenes. What stability? I'm here. Bills are being paid. Debts. Yeah, we have too many debts. I'll agree with that. But it's like every time, the other day I had someone pop up and go, "We found this in company's house. Why are these on here?" I feel like going, "What's it fucking got to do with you?" I think it were loans that I'd put in by my wife and Jason had put in or whatever to pay our wages and pay our bills, which is normal. And they went in company's house and they went out down as securitization because that's what happens sometimes. Somebody put in here about if DMAC takes his money out of the club, we're stuffed. Let me explain something to you about how that works. There is no written agreement in place for the money I've put into the club from years gone by, where I think I'm owed still 3.5, 4, 5, 4.5 million. There's nothing in writing that says I tomorrow can demand that money back and put the club into trouble. Nothing whatsoever. Nor would I do that. I would take it back if we were flush with cash and we had too much cash and we want to reduce debt. Again, you're overthinking this. When have I ever done that in 17 years? At one point, I think the club owed me 11 million quid. So over time, particularly when the guys bought in and they put in, and someone was to come out to me to reduce my debt and then to have them a matching debt, that's just a metric of when you do a takeover deal. That reduced my debt that the club owed. That's a good thing, by the way. So again, it's nothing nefarious there. Do we have too many debts for a League One club? Yeah, that's the price of COVID. That's the price of championship and bonuses and having a go. People said we didn't have a go, but we did have a go. That's the price of doing business in an economy that's tough. And sometimes you take out loans. Sometimes you take them out at silly interest rates. Sometimes there are loans you wish you didn't do. But again, I go through my agenda. I want to get rid of a lot of those debts, and we will. So Bob Sims works for me and other stuff outside of the club. Of course we miss everything's falling apart. It's not falling apart. Bob's still at the club a couple of days a week. He still goes to games. He's still there. We have an acting CEO. He's doing a great job on operations. Leighton's brilliant. He's steadied the ship. I see stuff written about him that's so unfair. He works like 16-hour work days. He's away from his family. He's never asked for this, and nor does he want it. He's just steadying the ship. We know in the summer we're hiring a new manager. We're hiring a new CEO. There's no point in doing it right now. He's a safe pair of hands. People want to have a dig at him. Have a dig at him for what? The guy is like, his family live in Southampton. He's here on his own, 6 days a week. Cut some of our employees some slack. It's not fair. So again, it's an overreaction. The EFL thing, it's resolved. It'll come out soon in time. We can't, the EFL won't let us talk about it, or the person who used to work for us talk about it until there'll be a joint statement. It'll come out. It's been resolved. It's not an issue. We're moving on. Again, like overreaction time.
So the questions around, and I guess this is kind of the last area to talk about is the pipeline of assets within the club.
Oh my God.
So we've now come off the rails since Ivan Toney and Dembele, and we're not making money now. And you can't point to many players in the squad and say they're going to make much money.
What a load of bollocks. I turned down an £8 million deal for Ronnie at the end of August. I turned down one club at the top of League One, made 4 offers to buy Jack Taylor, all the way up to nearly 2 million quid in January. He's worth more than that. I turned down an offer for Clark Harris, a verbal phone call 5 hours before the window closed on deadline day, in the millions again. You Poku, you got Mason Clark. Are you fucking kidding me? We've no assets. In the 17 years I've been here, we've always had assets. We just sold Sammy Schmodox last summer. We do what we do. You know, the sell-ons we have in place, you know, everyone knows about those things. You know, we've come off the rails since Tony and Dembele. You know, we aren't making money. No, you're right. We haven't sold enough players. If anything, I can be critical of myself where I've turned down deals I should have taken because I wanted us to win promotion. So almost you're making my argument for me, you know, and I've learned from that, and I want to reduce the debt. No, we're not having any fire sales. Then the other thing as well is that some of the shit that was written and some of the stuff on message boards and some of the stuff on podcasts made other clubs think we were in financial trouble, made other clubs think they could take the piss making offers. So that doesn't help the club either. Every time you say the club's in the shit and it like can't pay its bills and the club's close to administration and the club owes this and the club owes that and our players aren't worth pot, other people read this stuff and believe it. And then they make fucking ridiculous bids for players. I would go, fuck off. So, you know, but you're absolutely right. You know, maybe we haven't sold enough players, but it's not, I've turned down those bids, you know, but
it's not because you don't have assets in the building.
I have bids in my email Dropbox here that would make so many other clubs like absolutely sick to their stomach and wish they got those offers. So with all due respect, we have a great pipeline of assets. And if you go onto the cover and start looking at our academy and some of the players coming through that academy, you know, they'll play 20 games for us and they'll be worth a lot of money and gone. But say that, you know,
you get offers for academy players that nobody will even ever heard of, that will be, you know, 6-7 figures.
I see the scout list. I see who the scouts come to watch. I see it. You know, recently, for an example, there were 2 Premier League clubs that were watching Hector, who we got from Leighton Orient, who was having, you know, he's a good young player with lots of physicalities, top clubs like, you know, they were there for Mason Clark, they were there Poco, you know what I mean? Ricky, when he was flying early on in the season, you know what I mean? I was on a BBC 5 Live and I had 2 championship managers say, what about that young left winger of yours, Ricky J. Jones? You know, what would you take for him now? You know, are you kidding me? Come on. We have assets all over the field. You know, to turn around and say that there's no sellable assets, it's just a load of nonsense. You know, you really are angry after a defeat saying things like that, because I could name 7, 8 straight off the bat. I've even spoken about Harrison Burrows, who's now playing as a 10. He's 20. Again, a lot of clubs in the championship would like to buy him. So that doesn't keep me up at night. And as a club, since I've been there in 17 years, with the sales we've done and the business we've done, we will always have sellable assets, and there'll be more to come when I recruit in the summer. So,
and does that make you more confident with the debt level, because you know you've got
always,
like
always.
If you needed to, you know, liquidate to get cash, you've got enough assets that would, you know, outstrip what the debt level is.
I could get rid of all our debt in June and July this summer if I wanted to. I'd have to rebuild the whole squad, but I could basically get rid of all our debts and have a nice surplus of money sat there.
Yeah,
in the summer, I could do it. So you know, if I had to do it, I would do it. And if I had to do it in January, I would have done it. It's never a good time in January to do it, but I would have done it. So I could easily have sold Jack Taylor, Ronnie Edwards, and Clark Harris in January, and we'd have been fine for the next 2 years budget-wise without any owner contribution. So I chose not to. I turned it down. I loaned some more money into the club because I wanted to have a go. I wanted to give the new manager a chance to win promotion, and that's now been used against me. That makes no sense. So, but I've learned from that. And like I said, I'll go through the agenda in a minute, what I want to do. Right. Everyone knows once and for all.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I look through the other comments,
yeah,
we've talked about communications. You know, it's funny, I see all these Have a Fans forum. I was at your last one, you know, there's like 20 people there. So it's people call for it and then don't necessarily show up for it.
Yeah, social media is the worst of the worst. No real communication strategy. Our owners don't like to share bad news. Well, no, listen, you're absolutely right. Do you want me to share every time I have an objection I need to overcome? Every time we have a little mountain we need to climb? Do I need to come out and panic fans? Do I need to come out and say, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Oh my God, you know, we made a mistake on the CEO. Oh my God, we did this. You know, is that the way you want the club run? Where every couple of days you're hearing something negative and it just puts everyone's head in a tailspin. Can't do that. Can't do that to our fans. I can't do that to my employees. You can't run a business like that. The stuff I have to deal with sometimes, particularly over the last 6 months, you know, and you know, I wouldn't even want to depress my wife with some of the information, but you know, what I do is I deal with it. I execute a plan, deal with it, move on, and I resolve it. That's my job.
I mean, that's why we say is, you know, being a business owner is sometimes a lonely place because there's things that you don't even necessarily want to share with your own employees. It's not because you're not going to overcome those challenges. It's just they don't need the play-by-play.
No, they don't. So, let's end with my agenda. What is my agenda for Peterborough United? So my agenda for Peterborough United is, let's start at the top. I always like to pay our bills. That's number one when you run a club. Particularly going forward, what is my agenda? Over the next 30 months, I want to get rid of all our debt. That's like high on my agenda. I also want to make sure we still have a competitive football team that still draws eyes on it, that still keeps our fans happy. I still want to always challenge for promotions. I still want to, that's in me. I can't turn around and go, we're going to go mid-table, but we're going to reduce all our debt. I'm not built that way. I'm sorry. I'm the wrong guy for the job. If that's who you want, it's not me. But at the same time, I'm going to try and juggle everything. I want us to move to a new stadium. I want us to improve our current stadium until we move to the new stadium. I want to get that sports bar opened. I want to have less issues and mistakes that are public, because there's been too many of them. I want to look after my staff better. I have staff that are, could go get jobs elsewhere and earn more money, and they stay out of loyalty to the football club because of their love for the football, not for the love for me, for the football club. And although we kept everyone on during COVID, we didn't lose anyone, and that was a big thing to me. As we move out of it now, as we reduce our debts, as we make improvements, I want to look after our staff better. Particularly the ones who've been here a long time. And sometimes they don't get the best of us or me, because I get caught up in this. I get caught up in football drama. I get caught up in everything. And, it's almost like, they come second to everything. And I don't want that to be us. I want, as a club, to be better for the people who work for us, and look after them better. So that's massively important to me as well. I want to see our academy flourish as it's done. And Kieran, Jason, everyone's done a great job regards that. I want less public drama revolved around ownership and around us and partners and whatever else. So I want to solve those things. So that's my agenda, at the end of the day. And there's nothing nefarious to that agenda. I'm not trying to, people say sell up and whatever else. Okay, who do you want me to sell to? For me to sell, the three of us have to say yes to that.
Yeah.
So I'm here and I'm running the club. I'm going to run it to my best of my ability. I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm going to do all the things I've spoken about, including starting. We have far too much debt, and not as much as people think. And that you'll see in the next set of accounts and everything else, that, we're working away and we're making good plans, but we're a League One football club. We don't get a large slice of the pie. Unless we sell players, there's not a massive tick in income. There's always a tick in overheads, and you'd like to bring them down a bit. My players have always earned the most money, and that's what I mean about looking after my staff. Yes, that's your main product, so you have to pay your players really well, but at the same time, you've got people behind the scenes. Whilst they not be Golden Boot winners, they're still as valuable as the Golden Boot winner and the work that they put in sometimes. So, I want to make sure that my staff are like smiling when they go to work, and while they're already giving me everything they've got, that, I'm looking after them. So these are all the things I want to do. That's my only agenda. I want to fall out with less fans. I'll be less emotional and reactive. I could easily have come on and destroyed the yellow block and gone into this and gone into that and talked about individuals and whatever. I'm not going to do that. So I'll be respectful and say, you have your right to do your podcast. You have your right to call me out. You have your right to hammer me, hate me, not like me, want me to leave. No problem with that at all. What you don't have the right to do is manipulate facts. You don't have the right to say things that aren't true. And that's what I'd always say to anyone: tread carefully. And you can always come to me and for a right of reply, or if you're not sure about something, but go easy. I'm not the devil incarnate. I'm not here to try and destroy your football club. I'm actually here to try and make it better. I do the best I can. It's not always going to please everybody. You're going to have your DMAC out, and as I was called recently, Pikey out, or whatever else. But all I want to do is the best job I can do, and make sure I can pay all the bills, and make sure that we can keep winning at places like Lincoln, and do our best, and have big games against Derby and big games against Ipswich, and eventually hopefully getting back to big games against Sheffield United and clubs like that, which wasn't that long ago, actually. So that's it. That's my agenda. I don't know if I've missed anything from the agenda. If I have, I apologise, but that's my agenda. You want to ask anyone else to do with the club their agenda? Have at it. Feel free. I'm sure they'll tell you what their agenda is. It's probably in line with mine. If it's not, I'd be surprised. That's it.
All right. Well, I think that we've certainly touched on all the points that were raised. I struggle to think of anything that we didn't touch, but we're here. So if anyone's got any questions to say or information they've heard they're afraid of,
I want to come on the show. You want to come on the show, yeah. And
Yep.
we've always said this, even the DMAC out crowd or whatever else, or the Pikey out crowd. You want to come on the show, have at it, email in. We've never turned anyone coming down. Levi Crisp was really brave. He came on the show and everyone thought I was going to hammer him. I didn't. We would always be polite, respectful. So anyone wants to come on the show, write in to Phil. Phil will give you the email address right now. We will have you on the show. And if you want to come at me in any which way, as long as it's in a proper manner, I'll answer those questions. So, yeah, always look forward to a good debate, healthy debate.
Yeah, well, that's contact@hardtruthfootball.com if anybody wants to reach out to us. But you can reach out to us, and any of the team that are monitoring all the social accounts as well in any way, shape, or form, and they'll always find their way back to us. So
Brilliant.
All right.
Brilliant, guys.
Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you,
thanks
Philip.
to everybody, as always, for listening, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, Darragh.
Take care, everyone.
Hope that we have another successful week of points in the bag.
Good old football.
Yeah.
God bless
All right,
everyone.
take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.